Hi, my name is FeliSpeaks. I'm a poet, performer, and playwright. So I'm a poet, performer, playwright, and that means that I write poems, I write plays, I perform on stage in relation to theater, in relation to spoken word. I write different poems about social issues, social political issues, issues in relations to women, identity, and everything else in between. I think this is an interesting question because I don't think one becomes a poet. I think one is a poet and happens to share their work with the world. And that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. Specifically to me, I do different things each day. I couldn't possibly do the same thing every day. I suppose that's why I took the journey to being an entrepreneur. But I suppose every day I'd check my emails, I'd read something, I'd write a piece of something. If I don't have a gig that day or if I don't have a project I'm working on, and I'd usually have meetings or really interesting random things like this, being interviewed or, yeah. So it differs per day and it's always interesting. The best thing about being a poet for me is I get to perform. Ooh, the most challenging thing about being a poet is realizing how versatile the role is, that it's not a one-dimensional role, especially as a young person making money, that's living a life in Dublin City. So that in itself is consistently a challenge. Trying to find ways of honoring your craft as well as making money from your craft. You could take the approach to writing poetry in many different ways, but my favorite is always the one thing I say every time I'm asked is truth-telling. Telling the truth will help you write poetry, and I think people get freaked out as to how to approach poetry because they think it needs to be some grandiose thing. But even the most simple of poems can be awe-striking or striking. You can correct me. But even the most simple of poems can be really striking. So if it comes from a place of truth, it'll land. What inspires me to write poetry? Everything. I think life itself is inspiring and it's constantly happening. Everything can make you want to write. Like the color of that door is stunning and it makes me want to write, you know? Yeah, so that's my thing. I don't think there needs to be a deep thing happening before you write. I write poems that make me feel and that tell the truth. And it doesn't always have to be the truth about my life or the truth that I'm existing in, but it has to be a truth. And so that's how I approach poetry, yeah. What Heaney Said is kind of like a two-part piece of poetry. I basically recite one of Seamus Heaney's poems and then I recite a response to it. And I wrote that piece because one, Seamus Heaney is a legend and everybody knows who he is, incredible poet, and I have a book of his poems at home and he came up in my leaving cert, you know, like he's everywhere. But I think specifically with that poem, I wanted to write a response to it because, again, I think one of the beautiful things that poetry does is that it marks a moment in time in history. And I wanted to continue a tale that he was currently like speaking on. And I wanted to speak on it, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years from the position that he was standing. And I thought that hopefully my voice or the addition of my voice would be important. I think you could do anything with a piece of text that makes you feel something, but one of the ways to interrogate a piece of text that you want to respond to is rewriting their lines. Like, how would I say that? What did they mean when they said that? And how do I feel about that? And so if I do feel something about it, can I reword it, or can I put my personal experience into that sentence? So let's say the sentence is, the cat has ginger hair, and you've never seen a ginger-haired cat, so you're like, and you know about the black tabby cat in your estate. You're like, okay, ginger-haired cats exist, but black tabby cats are interesting. You know, like, insert your life experience into the piece of text that you're engaging with, and it can become new. Truthfully, to not be deep about anything, I have no idea. I really don't. I'm a feely woo type of poet, so I tend to go with a lot of gut instinct, and picking poems for, that's actually a really interesting question now that I think about it, because I don't think most people have ever asked me why I pick a poem for a moment. But I think a lot of it is to do with gut instinct and the potential audience that would be interested in the package, or interested in the people that are funding this particular thing. Do you know what I mean? So it really depends on the potential of the audience and my gut instincts in relation to the project that I'm working on. Oh, I remember that one. 1 Year Old is so beautiful. The first time I read it out loud to myself, I think I cried. And the way I perform it in the Coole Park series video is the exact same way that I interacted with it the first time I engaged with it. Like, I just thought it was stunning. It felt very soft. It felt very airy. I don't know what this flower is. It looks a bit like a cotton ball. What is this particular plant? Anyway, that's what feeling it gives me. If I were a particular plant, or this poem was a plant, it would feel like this little cotton ball, kind of white, fluffy plant. That's a really random thing, but I picked it because it was beautiful. And it resonated in a really, really strange way. And I don't know what it is, because I'm not old, but I've loved. And I think, again, finding the truth that resonates with you in a piece of text is important. And I found that with that piece. And so I performed it. Right. That's the only thing. There's nothing worse than, and every writer goes through this, where being the kind of writer that doesn't write. And I will say this, I wrote a lot more when I was younger. I had a lot more time. And I think I had more simplicity of emotion. Now my emotions are quite complicated, and I have to sift through them to write a clear poem without being, oh, do you know what I mean? So if you want to be a poet and you want to enjoy being a poet, write all the time. And it doesn't have to be perfect pieces of poetry. I think that's a lie. I don't think there's a perfect piece of poetry, but there's always a truthful piece of poetry, and that will always resonate with somebody. So just write.